Professor Nash, can you tell us why JetBlue, moving on to our next topic, is trying to take a hostile takeover of Spirit Airlines? What is going on with takeovers in 2022?
So a lot of these companies are basically now in a very interesting pricing sector. What I don't understand with this, and unfortunately, maybe I'm missing something here, is as cheap as these companies are, and airlines are definitely in a very comfortable place right now, with everything macroeconomically that's going on, with price of energy going through the roof and only expected to go higher, how do you make money at $110 crude? I mean, I just don't see it. And at this point, buying an airline in this energy prices level, you're making a huge bet.
This is what I think is happening with JetBlue and Spirit, right? You get greater economies of scale, right? Do you remember that? The classic story you teach in Harvard Business School is when you remove one tomato from the salad, you save like millions of dollars, right? Just it's a commoditized product, a ticket from one place to another place. And that's why you've seen the proliferation of Ryanair, Spirit Airlines, Frontier, because at a certain point, for under a 3-hour long flight, or even under a 5-hour flight, people just want to get from A to B, and they're willing to pay the least amount to get from A to B. And so agreed. The single biggest thing is fuel prices, but there's also huge amounts of infrastructure, labor, et cetera. So it's all about like capacity, occupancy, and all that stuff. So, but that all gets passed on to the end price. So, and also not only that, right? They try to hedge the oil prices as well using derivatives. So yes, I think oil prices are huge and a catalyst for JetBlue and Frontier, them trying to consolidate. But at the end of the day, the airline industry is already very consolidated. I don't think the US government, especially the Biden administration, is going to let more consolidation happen. So I wonder if all this M&A activity is all for naught. But even if it does go through, right, they're just trying to consolidate because JetBlue really can't grow in this environment. I agree with you that oil is a huge factor, but I also think that it's a consolidation kind of issue in order to protect. Yeah, I mean, they are unprofitable still. A lot of them.
Look, we've been in the $60 crude kind of neighborhood for the past 7 years before the pandemic, give or take, which is where this phenomena happened. Which the Ryanairs, the JetBlues, the EasyJet in Europe, all of these bare bones. Here's a stool. Sit on your stool in the plane and get point A to point B in 20 euros, whatever, right? So that whole thing works when crude is at 40, 50, 60, maybe 70. Once you go past that point where crude is 110, 120, basically you get to a point where people just don't travel. I mean, the people who need the EasyJets, the Southwest, the Ryanair, the JetBlue, whatever, like the Spirits, they just won't travel. At certain cost of tickets, they just say, well, fuck it.
Well, yeah, I mean, now we're talking about what, like inflation. Is it like stagflation? Do we see wage inflation parity with cost inflation? Like there's so much in there, right?
But also, like, think about it. Would you buy you're a capital allocator. That's what you do for a living now. Would you get into airlines right now?
I would never get into airlines with a 10-foot pole ever.
Well, if gas prices, like if crude oil was at $20, would you be more prone to do it than now?
No, I mean, the classic joke with airlines is they lose money through cycle. And they're horrible investments, and the only reasons why hedge funds invest in them is because they're very volatile. And so because they're volatility, they like to trade them. But as investments, they're they go routinely bankrupt.
Well, the only ones that can actually make it is the ones we talked about, where it's a very cheap, think about it this way. So I'm not an expert in airlines, but if you're like multinational airlines, where you lose money is on these big ass flights. Like you have two sorts of planes. The planes that are sitting more on the ground, that they're in the air, like the 747s, the A380, the big ones. And then you have the small buses, like the 737 or A320, which is they just constantly fly, like 10, 15 flights a day, whatever, right? So that's where the big money is, on these buses. So if it's a company that just does the buses, the short flights, 1 hour, 2 hour, and they can actually make money as long as it's sustainable as far as energy prices. Once you go and you take away the commoditization of fuel and it becomes a premium price, the whole business model collapses. So I don't see the point of this. I don't think it's a good investment.
Yeah.
All right.
None of them are.